is the fact that the Big 12's highest ranked team, um, only number 16 in the country, is that a sign of disrespect for this conference, or do you feel like maybe that's about right and it is more of a reflection of just kind of how wide open the Big 12 is this year?
Yeah, I guess so. I think it's the latter. I think even coming into the season, it looked like, certainly on paper, with the healthy Cam Rising, Utah's a clear one. And then you could sort 2 through almost 13 and say they got a shot to be up there. I mean, I think realistically more was about 2 through 10. And we've seen some of those people who were there kind of fall by the wayside. I mean, Oklahoma State's lost 2 in a row, the first two. Um, Kansas fallen off the map, and they were considered to be right there. But I thought it was going to be a league that was going to be, again, very challenging because a lot of similarly talented teams, not necessarily in the same ways. Like UCF has an embarrassment of riches in its running game, for instance. And, you got teams that that are more balanced. You got teams that are offense heavy. TCU can score on anybody, but can they stop anybody? All that sort of thing. So that's, I think there was not a team that you would think there's a top five team coming in outside of potentially Utah. And then, of course, they lose Cam Rising, and the backup's okay, but clearly their offense drops off significantly, and that certainly showed last week, but not just last week. I mean, it's
Yeah,
just without him there.
no doubt.
I think it's about right. Like I think Iowa State and Kansas State and Utah are all probably pretty similar in terms of their talent level and everything. And I think that's a huge problem for the Big 12 because you watch that Alabama Georgia game, and like who in the Big 12 is competing with either of those teams? Like no one. And Ohio State just dominated Michigan State, and Oregon's about to do the same this weekend. And those are two look pretty juggernauts in the Big Ten. And I think that the Big 12 as a whole doesn't have a power team, a juggernaut. And I think that, as we move forward in this national college football landscape and looking at the playoff, like the Big 12 is probably going to only get one team in. And that team is probably going to be one and done. At least I would pick them to be one and done. And I think that's a big problem for the Big 12 if that sustains year over year, or hopefully it's just a 1 year thing, but
I I
whatever.
don't think it will sustain year over year. I think it's just a funky year in terms of I mean, Rob mentioned it. Utah looked like the best team, but clearly Cam Rising means a lot to that offense. I still think there's room for the Big 12 champion to move up in the rankings as the season progresses, and you build more wins and more quality wins and that kind of thing. But to Zach's point, yeah, I don't. It doesn't look like they've got a team that can compete with Georgia or Alabama, and that's kind of the case a lot of seasons. So, but
Well, it's you, right? When they got the national championship game,
yeah, no doubt, no
like
doubt.
it didn't belong on the same field. So,
There sometimes are surprises. I mean, you think back to TCU a couple years ago, and so I don't know. I mean, I think there's still room for the Big 12 to grow this year.